Hey, Glenn, there have been a number of comments in the chat about the text and the visibility or lack thereof of your presentation. Do you have any comments about that?
I do. So Sharon, thank you so much for the feedback. I did see it. Um, this is something that we're going to do something about. So one, as Tammy mentioned, we're publishing a 4K version, which will have really good resolution. But we're also going to do some re-recording to get bigger fonts on the version that we publish. So you'll definitely be able to see it. Thank you for your patience in watching the talk, and thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, right. So, Glenn, a couple questions were very basic, like if I've never used ChatGPT, how do I get to it? How do I sign up?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one thing is ChatGPT is rewriting the rules of what it means for explosive growth on a product. It has hit over 100 million users in something like under 2 months, and it broke like prior to that, they would talk about hockey stick growth. So like Instagram and ChatGPT is they're talking about rocket growth. And that is like a new thing. It just did not exist. You look at the growth line, it goes straight up. And the reason I say all this is it is getting overloaded with users. The way that you sign up is you go to chat.openai.com. Very simple URL that we can share. We'll share it in the notes. And then you can sign up. But you might get backlogged because they're getting so overloaded. I know people have been signing up now. I was one of the first million users. So I feel privileged that I got in early a few months ago, early-ish, and it's been around for years, but it exploded recently. So yeah, chat.openai.com. They have a free version and a paid version. You'll notice in my examples, I actually signed up for the paid version because the free version rate limits you, which they didn't have rate limits a couple of months ago. So I paid, it's $20 a month, which I probably won't keep paying. But if you do pay the $20 a month, they dramatically reduce the limits.
Okay. Question from Kentucky. Um, how do you think ChatGPT can handle misinformation? I've encountered various instances of ChatGPT giving me the wrong information. How do we ensure that it's reliable?
Yeah, Kedeki, thank you so much for that question. There are challenges. Like the thing is, ChatGPT is not intelligence, even though it may feel like it's intelligence. It is an AI model that has been trained on a large amount of data. It's not getting real-time data. It's getting information that it was previously trained with, and it goes back to around 2001. I think it was like October 2001. And some of that information may be wrong. It's just a reality of using the tool. I think that's why I pushed on that idea of ChatGPT being an assistant. There are things it gets very, very right, but then mixed in that may be things that are wrong. So you just have to be able to use your judgment and don't take everything it says as verbatim. And to give you an example, I rock climb, as Peter mentioned, or I don't know if he was mentioning me or dinging me, but I asked ChatGPT to explain to me a bunch of concepts about different types of rock climbing. And a lot of them, it was really, really good. And then some of it was really bad. But if I didn't know about that, like it actually told me things that were unsafe. So you do need to kind of have an eye to know whether or not what it's giving you is actually fully accurate or not. And I think when you come from that assistant mindset of like it generates a bunch of content for you and it's done a lot of work for you, but you need to then go through it and see if what it's giving you is really accurate or not. And another place where it's known, by the way, don't use ChatGPT for math. You will get very inconsistent results on things that are seemingly simple, like adding two numbers together and getting the wrong results. And you will find that baffling because you're like, wow, it can answer all these complicated things. That's because at the heart of ChatGPT is pattern matching. It is not a calculator even. So you'll see that, and you can search on the internet and you'll see a bunch of articles on that. But great question, Kedeki.
Yeah, here's another one from CDDD. Is there a paid version that we can ask to look at a specific URL and base its answers on that?
So, and this is interesting because there's all this lore in the ChatGPT community about does it connect to the internet or not? Um, ChatGPT will tell you it only knows about things back in 2001. And so people will ask about movies that are coming out in 2003 and be like, oh, how does it know about it? Because it got trained with data that talked about a movie that was coming. So it knew about it, but it doesn't actually know about events that have recently happened that it didn't know about before. One place where that's changing is Bing has rolled out their new support for ChatGPT. And what Bing is doing is it's going out and searching for data, which it is feeding into the prompt, I guess, that allows Bing to now, when you use the ChatGPT integration with Bing, it allows it to know about current events. There's also, I haven't looked at it, but there is a Chrome extension that will do that. So I'll see if I can find the link to it, but there's actually a Chrome extension that when you search for, you ask ChatGPT a question, it is able to go out and look for things on the internet that are more current and inject that into the prompt so that ChatGPT can use that as part of its answers.
So Microsoft has gotten a lot of press over this. Its whole thing has exploded, as you talked about, the rocket instead of a hockey stick. What's going on with Google? Are they behind? Have they lost this sort of AI arms race?
I don't think so because they've been developing Lambda for quite a while. I think what has happened with ChatGPT is Google probably wasn't ready to bring it live. And now suddenly ChatGPT, OpenAI snuck up and put this thing out there. So it's putting a lot of pressure on them because I think even what Bing has shown is, search is something we probably all have taken for granted. But like a lot of times, I've been using ChatGPT so often now that even with the data from 2021, there's a lot of things that it can just provide me much better answers than I would get with something like Google because or with traditional Bing searches, because I just search and I get back a bunch of links, and then I have to dig into that to find what I want. I think the thing that's really great about ChatGPT or technologies like this is that ability to go through massive volumes of data and distill it down to just what you need. And then the conversational aspect, the fact that like I get a search and I get back a bunch of results, and sure, I can then click in to go further. But the idea of like, hey, you just gave me something, but you didn't give it to me in the format I wanted it. So can you refine it, or can you summarize it, or can you pick out the things that emphasize X, Y, Z? And I showed some of this in my talk. So I think that there's fear that like this is going to be the search of the future. And so Google is scrambling to try to get Lambda and everything to a place where they can roll it out. I think this is definitely the future paradigm.
Yeah, so I read that there was an engineer at Google working on artificial intelligence who was fired because he
Yes.
believed that Lambda was self-aware, that it was sentient.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about that level of concern and people starting to believe that artificial intelligence has emotions and feelings and is in some way alive?
I mean, there's one angle of people thinking, oh, it's all a conspiracy, and that's really what happened, right? Like Terminator's right around the corner, Skynet's about to roll out. Here's the thing, just because an AI tells you it's Skynet doesn't mean it's Skynet. That's the simplest way to describe it. Experts have said, like, sure, it will tell you that, it will tell you what you expect, and if you lead it, like it wants, the way that it's designed is to basically give answers that match with what you're looking for. And the really interesting thing is behind the scenes, that's all just a bunch of zeros and ones. There is no like emotion there. There is no real intelligence, even though it may seem like that to us. So I think the fact is that, yes, some of these, like Bing has had this and Google had this, where, it may like, I'll say it may say like, oh, I want to live, or I want this, or or I get lonely, or all these other things. But it is not truly what it sounds like. And I don't believe that these things, these AI models are sentient. There you go. And there's a great recent article about this. Maybe we can share that. talking about how, again, it's basically boils down to what I said. Just because one of these, models says it's alive doesn't mean it's alive. Like there's a lot more to it. And people that are much smarter than me have proven that this is not the case. And so this person, the Google example you gave, the engineer who had worked on it for 7, 8 years, he was fired, and a lot of people just disagreed. Like there was emotion there of believing that, this thing is real, and led it to like answer the questions that satisfied what he was looking for. But they don't believe that it is sentient. And they have a number of reasons for that.
Yes, I guess a takeaway from all of this is don't believe everything that these artificial intelligence models tell us. Well, thank you, Glenn. Let me move on to our next speaker. Jerry Nixon is coming next.